was a weird game. It was a dramatic game. It was poorly played. Wasn't really well coached. And I changed my mind on who was going to win, I would say 10 different times during the game. But the big thing for me, it was sitting there for Burrow, especially at various points in the second half. And then that last drive, and he gets to midfield right away. And I was like, man, he's going to fucking win the Super Bowl. This is like, we're back. This is like Tom Brady territory again. And then all of a sudden it was 4th and 1 and they weren't getting it and the game was over. How many times did you change your mind during this game?
I think I sent you live odds when the Rams were down 4 or whatever, and they're down. I'm like, all right, they're minus 110, and then they punt the ball. I'm like, all right, they're plus 140, even down 4. I'm like, I didn't know what was going on with them. And I felt the same way with you. Like, it feels like the easy way to analyze these games. Like, all right, who has the better quarterback? But by the end, there's like, neither team can run the ball, especially the Rams. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how many yards did they end up with 33 rushing, 36 rushing?
Yeah, they're 23 for 43, and Kupp had 1 for 7.
Right. Kupp had the 7, which, by the way, I think that was what won him the MVP. I mean, obviously, the 2 touchdowns were great. Keeping that drive alive because he had to get mauled every play down the stretch, right? To stop him from scoring, and eventually scored anyway. It wasn't that hideous pass he threw. I mean, we have an MVP with a 39.6 passer rating. I don't know if we'll ever see that again.
He almost killed somebody in the 3rd row, I think.
Yeah, but they couldn't run. You and I were texting each other. What the hell is going on here? Give it to Sony Michel. Do something. How is this team not able to run at all? So I thought we had like an hour of bad football there right after the Bengals came out and scored, and then scored again after the Stafford interception. We had like an hour of bad shit.
Bengals TD to start the 3rd quarter.
Yeah.
On an obvious offensive pass interference. I texted you, Gronk was called for 100 worse offensive pass interferences in his career than the T. And we couldn't even see from our seats that he also face masked them, but it was a clear push off.
I just with something like that. Let me just say one thing. Like, I used to do this thing where I'd have friends, if my friends and I were taking an elevator ride and it stopped at a floor and someone got on the elevator with us, I would turn my head a little and I'd say, oh, look at this fucking guy. And the person who got on the elevator never thought I was talking about them because it's so outrageous that anyone would say that to him. I felt like the same thing happened with Jalen Ramsey. His head swung so much and was thrown so feverishly to the ground that the refs were like, no, that can't be. He must have tripped over himself. Like, I don't know how otherwise they would miss that call.
It was such an obvious pass interference that I thought they called it, and he was running down the thing, and we had people standing, so I couldn't see the ground around where Ramsey was.
Right.
And I don't think Ramsey complained enough, honestly. I feel like
that's what I thought
even
too.
crazier.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, that's coming back. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. So anyway, they get that. Stafford throws a pick. This is like the Bengals had this moment where they all of a sudden it seemed like they were going to go up 11. They couldn't close the door. Ends up being a field goal, I think. And then it was just an hour of some of the worst football we've watched, where it seemed like over and over again, the Rams had good field position, did nothing. You could tell, I was telling Cerruti before we came on, like, you could tell every time they're going to run the ball.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, Cooper Kupp's moving closer to the tight end, run play. There was no trickery. There was no anything. And at some point, it just felt like the OBJ, we were texting each other.
OBGYN?
And OBG.
Yeah.
We were texting each other about, is this the biggest Super Bowl injury of all time? Because it seemed like the Rams were going to get 50 points. They were going to, get the over the whole thing. He goes out, their offense collapses.
Right.
The other white guy comes in, non-Kupp. I just call him non-Kupp.
Skowronek?
Skowronek. I'm not even going to say his name.
Isn't it Skowronek?
No Kupp. And it was like every play to him was a disaster. It's like he gets an interception at one point.
Yeah.
But Kupp was heroic. That last drive, I put on Instagram that run play you mentioned. Because it was clear if they don't get this, the game's over. I didn't think that. I thought they were going to run the dive play and we were going to be like, wow, Sean McVay. Oh my God, he did it again. Another horrific coach. But it was a great play. It get the momentum. And you mentioned how Kupp was getting mauled. Just in person watching it, I don't know if the cameras are picking up, but it just seemed like the Bengals were like, we're just gonna basically tackle him on every play.
Right.
Then they finally called it when they had to on 3rd down. But didn't it feel like he was getting mauled that whole drive?
Yeah, it kind of did. And that's like, talk about someone who wasn't complaining. He just really kind of goes about his business. And eventually he's like, all right, I'm going to get you eventually. So it doesn't really matter. But you're right. I mean, it was so much that OBJ, that injury, first of all, was underthrown by Stafford. That more than the
Terrible.
2 interceptions were probably the worst pass because he was on his way to a great game, underthrown, same knee as the ACL. We don't know what it is, but enough to knock him out of the game. And now you're looking at, like you said, that Bryson Hopkins. I know he's a tight end. He became their second best pass catcher,
I know.
right? Like they had to overcome that. They had to overcome that bad non-PI call. They had to overcome not being able to run the ball at all. Akers 13 for 21. Like I want to know what happened with Sony Michel. I mean, he only had 2 yards on 2 carries, but that's a veteran. You know, he has 7 playoff touchdowns. Scored his team's first touchdown 3 times. Like, give him the ball more. You don't have to worry about him fumbling. So there was a lot of weird shit with McVay and the play calling. But yeah, you're right. Like for an hour, we were like, hey, we're definitely not looking at the best 2 teams here, right? And then it
did not feel that way.
Close and it was fun. But
yeah, we had Akers, Jefferson, and Skoranek, aka not Cooper Kupp. 26 carries / targets for those 3 guys for 56 yards total. That's a disaster. That was like basically 40% of their plays were 3 guys that were doing nothing. But I thought Kupp, it was clear that whole, if it was like, if they score here and they win, Kupp has to be the MVP because watching how they were trying to defend him, it felt like there were 3 people attached to him at some point on every play, right? And that key play, it was like a 25-yarder over the middle that really got the momentum. I just don't know how he got open. And it was the Stafford's best throw of the day too, where it was basically a button hook. 2 different guys were around him, and then a linebacker was right there too. Stafford had to miss the linebacker.
Yep.
Kupp had to make this play over the middle. And then he caught 2 touchdowns on the drive. One got called back where he got hit in the head, and then he gets the other one. But man, he is
phenomenal.
Just immense.
I don't want to say, I brought him good luck by hugging him Thursday night at NFL Honors, and my cousin Jimmy presenting with the trophy. I mean, it's obvious that was the good luck charm. But
yeah, I think so.
I think he's coming off the greatest year a receiver's ever had. Right? I mean, between winning Offensive Player of the Year and MVP of the Super Bowl, probably should have been considered more for regular MVP, and just the yards that he put up was just insane.
Right? I have the numbers.
Go ahead.
178 catches, 2,425 yards, 22 touchdowns. He won the Triple Crown the regular season. He had the most catches ever in a postseason, 33.
32? Yeah.
Or 32. He Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP. And it got to the point where he loses Woods.
Yeah.
They have no second option for him for a few weeks. The OBJ thing happens. Finally, that opens it up for him. OBJ disappears. What was that? Midway through the second quarter. And from that point on, it was just like, it's basically Kupp or nothing. And I didn't understand. I think he had 2 touches in the second half before that final drive, but just sitting there going, just get it to Cooper Kupp, like bubble screens, reverses, whatever, like just get the ball in his hands. And then finally in the last drive,
it's so funny because betting wise, he went under his total, right? It was like 102 then shot up to 107. So we're like, great game. He's the best. I think people bet him and lost on him. But I mean, we were looking at it. So if they don't win that game, McVay's put together like 2 of the worst Super Bowl offenses, depending on how you look at it, right? The one against the Patriots and then not being able to run at all against this Bengals.
Yeah,
team.
I want to nitpick with some of the coaching stuff. I think but to finish on Kupp, I was trying to think like people I've seen in person, best receivers. I never got to see Rice in person, but Rice is always going to be my number one. Moss got to see in person, especially in 2007. Could not do all the things Kupp did on a field. T.O. in the Eagles-Pats Super Bowl when he was playing in the Brooklyn Leg was completely unstoppable. And it reminded me a little of that, where it's just like, we can't stop this guy. And I think Kupp has moved into that, whatever stratosphere it is, because he actually did in the postseason. Like, I just think you have to move him past people like Calvin Johnson or whoever, like, because it's different when you have the regular season resume, but then you go up a level in the postseason. And what he did that last drive, I just thought it was nuts because all they had to do was take him out and the Rams were done. Who else were they going to throw to? The 3rd string tight end, Skoranek, Van Jefferson, whose wife was going into labor at halftime. But it was like, that was it. They couldn't run the ball. They were done. And he had to make all the plays, and he basically did.
Yeah, it was great to watch. And yet you shit on him in that 4th down play. We were going back and forth arguing. I thought it was a good play. Yeah, anything out of the box that doesn't work.
Oh, the pass?
Like, I told you so. Kupp should not be throwing a snapper. I was like, he was wide open. He had a clean pocket. He was on the run a little bit. Why isn't that a good play?
I hated the play. Well, I do that on second down. Don't do it at 3rd and 4 when you're down 7.
They couldn't run.
Touchdown.
There were no run plays that would work.
You have Cooper Kupp, who's sprinting with 2 guys about to tackle him, throwing to Stafford, who's just not athletic. It was like, what are the odds that was going to work?
If the Philly special didn't work, you would have been like, terrible, terrible call. Like sometimes these things just don't like it didn't execute.
I didn't like it.
But it was
I'm not going to like it. Right. But at least that was the one time they got tricky, because I didn't feel like they were tricky, nearly enough.
Well, the 4th and 1 sweep, which they're going for it on their own end with 5 minutes left. They don't make that. They're dead. The Bengals have them dead to rights, right? So that was the second
Well, that's
time
the thing. I mean, one of the things I wrote down was the Bengals almost stole the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You think like you go through the 4 weeks where that Raiders game where they're holding on, and if Carr doesn't spike it, I still feel like the Raiders would have scored it, at least would go to overtime. But the Raiders do everything wrong in that game and still are in it, and first down and goal from the 9. The next week, Tennessee, just over and over again, it's like, no, please take the game. We're trying to give it to you. And then they finally do.
Mm-hmm.
KC, I don't know what the fuck they were doing in that game once they had the 21-3 lead. Like, well, honestly, one of the most bizarre strategy, coaching, the Mahomes performance, all of that stuff. And the Bengals still barely win. Chiefs get the ball in OT to start it. And you think like, that's done. And then this game, they get the Beckham break, which was basically, the whole reason I picked the Rams was I was like, I think Kupp and Beckham can win this game. Mm-hmm. Beckham's removed, and I'm like, do I live bet this? Like, what? Like, the Rams aren't going to win now, and especially when they're only up 3 at halftime. Then they get the touchdown coming out of the gate, the Bengals. They
still had the best player on the field with Kupp, right? So I know Beckham was huge, and you don't want to lose him. And by the way, that sucks for him. It really does. It sucks that the Browns cut one of the best players in football, too. They just let him go. Or they didn't cut him, whatever. That's weird. But Beckham's 29, looking for a contract, injured the knee, the same knee that busted him up last time. That's up against, there's like 4 or 5 decent wide receivers. So I guess he'll get paid. But yeah, you're right. They almost stole it. You look at this Bengals team, and we talked about it. It's hard to tell. Would you say 65-35 Bengals fans?
Well, you figure, 25% of the people at that game could give a shit about either team.
Yeah,
they're just there to be there.
Get rid of them. Yeah. So
the Bengals fans, I was shocked by the number of orange jerseys and just orange in general before the game. I was like, wow. I thought it was going to be like of the people who cared. I thought it was going to be like 80-20 Rams Bengals.
Right.
But the Bengals fans flew out. Like they were there. They were loud. When that T. Higgins touchdown happened, that was probably the loudest point of the game.
Yeah.
And
the stadium doesn't let you enjoy the loudness of the fans because they immediately pipe techno music in, and it's like, oh, all right. Can you let it breathe? Can you let this game breathe a little? We don't go clubbing just yet. But yeah, I was impressed with them. I got there early. I know you did. And all I saw were Bengals fans. I got there 3. I was having nightmares last night about this traffic. Like people traffic, shut up about the traffic. It's a real thing. I lost sleep over it. And I woke up and at 8:30, I'm like, we got to get the hell out of here. And my wife's like, what are you talking about? Game starts at 3:30. I'm like, we're 6 miles away. Waze says 22 minutes. Yeah. I couldn't be happier with the traffic. I got there in 28 minutes. I got home in 27 minutes. It made I feel like I freaked out studying about a final exam, and it was like, I aced it. Like that was so easy. It's such a major win, and I totally forgot that football's over and that I should be depressed as a result.